Okay, so you get your testosterone replacement therapy labs back or your TRT labs back, and they look like a train wreck. Your hematocrit is high, your ferritin is low, your estrogen is creeping up, and got all these new problems coming up. Did you just trade one problem like low T for a bunch of new problems? The answer is a little complex, so we'll explain that in this video. Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Taranella, and I help you optimize and improve your health. Today, we're going to decode your TRT lab work so you can finally understand what's good, what might be a warning sign, and what everything really means. By the end of this video, you should understand the predictable cascade of lab changes TRT causes so that you can stop panicking and start having an intelligent conversation with your doctor. Okay, so here's the single biggest and important mind shift for anyone on TRT. You're not just raising your testosterone levels, you're pushing a massive hormonal domino effect, and it will tip over in very predictable ways. The most immediate and most common one that I see, your body starts cranking out more red blood cells, which make your blood thicker. Your hematocrit levels go up while simultaneously sucking out other vitamins and nutrients from storage, predominantly iron, to build that hematocrit up. Understanding this first domino, the red blood cell and iron effect, is key to managing your TRT safely from day one. So I know there's a lot of different labs to track, and if you want to learn how to optimize all of your TRT labs and truly master the entire process, check out my comprehensive guide, Mastering TRT. It covers everything we're discussing today in full detail, plus gives you some actionable steps to take and some targets for various labs. We'll put a link in the description below. Okay, so let's start to decode some of the labs you can expect to change when you're on TRT. We'll go category by category. So you can think of your body as having three different pools of iron. You have your hemoglobin, hematocrit, red blood cells. You have the active iron that's coming in from your food, and you have the stored iron. And so when you're on testosterone, it doesn't directly talk to your bone marrow to stimulate more red blood cell production. First, it signals to the kidneys to produce more erythropoietin, often known as EPO. And so EPO is really the foreman here that tells your bone marrow to start to crank up the red blood cell production, and why your hemoglobin and hematocrit start to go up with that increased EPO production. And as the EPO goes up and the hemoglobin and hematocrit go up, you start to get thicker blood, which you then need to manage. Now, to build all those new red blood cells that create the higher hemoglobin and hematocrit, your body needs the raw materials to do that. And it pulls from your iron savings account, and that's the ferritin over here. And that's why we often see this paradox on TRT labs. Really high hemoglobin and hematocrit with dropping ferritin levels. It's a classic supply and demand phenomenon you need to monitor and manage so you don't become completely iron deficient. When that happens, other problems start to arise. The other ripple effect that often occurs with TRT labs and hormones is estrogen. So more testosterone provides more raw material for the aromatase enzyme, and that's going to crank out more estradiol. And so for many men, E2 is going to go up with this. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Oftentimes it's a good thing. We need estrogen for many different functions in our body. But when it starts to accumulate and get really, really high, it can create water retention, moodiness, and even gynecomastia. So we're looking for a balanced effect here and a balanced approach to the estrogen in all these labs, really, but we just don't want it to get excessively high. The next domino that sometimes falls is cortisol, and all of these hormones are going to be affected somewhat by TRT. The trick is getting that balance right. And when TRT corrects a true deficiency and doesn't overshoot, it can actually improve the body's response to stress and lead to healthier cortisol levels, which may mean bringing it a little bit higher. Remember, we don't want excessively high, we don't want excessively low. We're kind of going for that middle of the road. So this just means your stress response is more calibrated when you have normal or optimal cortisol levels. But if your dose is excessively high, that domino is going to tip the other way, and you're going to get too much of this adrenergic overstimulation or adrenergic load to the central nervous system. And part of that is based on your unique genetics. Part of it's based on your lifestyle and certain things you have going on. But the high cortisol is going to lead to a higher adrenaline state in some people. So that's going to lead to anxiety, poor sleep, and sometimes even decreased energy when the original reason you went on it was to improve your energy. So TRT can either fix some stress problems or actually sometimes make it worse. And so it's really about finding that balance. The third area we want to look at is with metabolism. And this is where oftentimes we will see quite a bit of benefit from TRT on your labs. And research does support the improvement in metabolism and specifically with insulin resistance when you go on testosterone replacement therapy. So by directly increasing testosterone levels, if you are working out, you're going to get more muscle mass being produced for said exercise. So someone without normal testosterone levels exercising is going to have a certain amount of muscle mass. You improve or raise those testosterone levels, you'll have a little bit more muscle mass. And muscle acts like a sponge to sugar, carbohydrates, and it improves the sensitivity. So you can crank out more energy with more muscle. And through this TRT effect, you often will see a lowering of the fasting glucose, A1C, and all the insulin sensitivity markers over time. It doesn't happen instantaneously. Along those same lines too, better insulin sensitivity means better fat metabolism, and specifically, you're going to see a drop in triglyceride levels because there's not as much burden on the liver. The muscles are taking up some of that excess. And so it helps to reduce fatty liver. It helps to reduce the stored fat and accumulation of fat in the liver. And so through that can help with fatty liver disease as well. The other thing that I think is important to note is also with inflammation. With improved metabolism, improved processing of blood sugar, we often will see a decline or a decrease in systemic inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein, and it's a sign that the body is kind of moving in a better state. Of course, there's a lot of labs to track when you're going on TRT and lots of different things to remember if you're new to this. And so if you're serious about wanting to optimize these TRT levels, lab-wise or otherwise, as we discussed, there is the comprehensive guide that I made, Mastering Your TRT, and there'll be a link in the description if you want to grab a copy. So the big takeaway, I think, is that testosterone is not just affecting one part of your body. It has kind of a domino or system-wide effect on things like hematocrit, affecting your erythropoietin, your ferritin. And so we want to watch for changes in these things in cortisol, estrogen, and look for improvements in areas too, like with your metabolism and with your inflammation. Understanding all these nuances is key to helping you make a decision on what's best for your health. So now that you understand some of the lab markers that can change, the most important follow-up question, I think, might be, how do I know if these changes mean the dose is actually right for me? Is it too high and causing more problems? That's why your next step is to watch this video right here, the signs of too much testosterone.